Hello! So in today's video, I'm going to tell you about my less than successful career as an air stewardess in the late 80s and early 90s. And why did I go for that in the first place? Well, was it because I wanted to serve tea and coffee to people at 35,000 feet? No. Was it because I wanted to administer oxygen when people needed it? No, not that. Was it because I wanted to sell duty-frees and bash into people with my trolley? No. Was it because I liked the shoes, the handbag, the matching cabin bag, and also the hat? No, it was none of those things, but no, it was none of those things. It was because my big sister did it. And I really admired my big sister. In fact, I'd spent my whole life saying, I want what she's having. Whether it was a Coke and a bag of crisps or any allergy that she discovered. I wanted what she was having. So not a great way to choose a career, I must say. But hey ho, I started the application process and this was brutal. Now, this was the late 80s and early 90s, and I'd like to think that these days we're a bit more enlightened and perhaps they're not quite so bad. I don't know, because there is no way I'm going to be applying to be an air stewardess now. The first thing that happened was that I went and bought the broadsheets. So I bought the Telegraph, the Times. I would like to say Independent, but I'm not 100% sure if that was even around then. So spread them all out on the lounge floor. Because they're so big, I haven't got the wingspan to be able to read a broadsheet. So spread them on the floor, knelt down, cut out the adverts, anything that said cabin crew, anything that looked like it had an aeroplane on it or a logo like it. Great. Except one of the ones I applied for was flight deck. So to be one of the people who actually flies the plane, a pilot. Sent off my CV to that and only went and got an interview. But now, looking back, why didn't I go to the interview? Instead, I just wrote back a very polite letter saying, oh, sorry, it was a mistake. I want to be cabin crew. I know. So I applied, and what you had to do in those days was ring a number and they would send you an application pack, which was pretty comprehensive. It would take a long time to fill out all of this and saying why you thought you'd be perfect for the role. And you had to put things like your weight and your height. And this will come back to bite me. I didn't get interviews with every one of them, but I did get a few. And the first interview I had was with the airline that my big sister worked at. I thought, brilliant. What a pair we'll be. Flying in the sky, her at the back galley, me at the front galley. It'd all be wonderful. Nope, didn't even get a second interview. However, my sister was an interviewer for that airline, and she did tell me a few of the sort of tricks that they do. One of them is, in the first interview on these airlines, they tend to have a maths test or a geography test or a bit of both. And she said, well, we never actually used to even mark them. I was like, what? What's the point then? She said, because when you have a test and you go through and you do it and then you're finished, you're relaxed and the real you comes out. And also it's interesting to see how you handle the nerves of doing a test. Okay, fine. What else? Not that any of this helped me get the job with her, of course, but what else? So the next thing was shoes. They look at your shoes. I know. So they look at your shoes, and if they're brand new, clearly shiny, beautiful, just out of the box, then you get top marks. If you've cleaned your shoes, you've had them rehealed, they're not scuffed at all, then you get the middle mark. And if you haven't done any of those things and they're just your shoes, you maybe pulled them out of the back of the wardrobe or whatever, maybe wipe them on the back of your legs as you walked in, then you get the bottom mark. And it was like this with everything. What you were wearing, your hair. If you'd clearly gone and had your hair done, especially for the interview, top marks. If you'd recently had your hair cut, trimmed, and it looked tidy, and you'd made a pretty good job of it yourself, middle marks. And if it was sort of just this, then bottom marks. Right, okay, so yeah, I thought I'd walk it with her airline, but didn't. But then maybe she didn't. Maybe she had a word and said it probably wasn't a good idea. I'll have to ask her that one. So I obviously did manage to get a job. So I had a couple of first interviews with a couple of different airlines, then went through to the second interview, then finally went through and got accepted. Got that letter, because of course it was all snail mail in those days, so everything took a long time to come. But I got my letter. So next, the training course. Now the training course is intensive. It's you don't know whether you're coming or going. You don't know which way is up. Most of it is learning safety and emergency procedures. She rattled that off, didn't she? Most of it is that. And you have to learn them word for word. You have to learn them during the day, and then they put you up in a hotel for the duration of the training period. And while you're there, every evening you are learning off by heart everything they've taught you during the day. Oh, you are expected to get, well, the airline I was with, over 90%. And if you don't, woe betide you, apart from being shamed in front of the rest of the people on your course, you have to retake it. And if you don't retake it, that's it. What? Oh my goodness. So we all had the fear of God in us. We were all there desperately trying. Now, bear in mind that most of the people on my course, this is what they'd wanted to do since they were little girls or boys. And then there was me that wanted to do it because my big sister did it. Everybody was taking things very seriously indeed. So day one, what happens? The first thing they do is they weigh and measure you. I can learn things. At those days, I could learn things quite easily. So I was expecting the training to be training, not weighing and measuring. And now I get that you have to wear a uniform, but it was late 80s, early 90s. I was early 20s. I was a size 10. But in front of everybody, they said to me, "You're a bit heavy. Can you lose half a stone by the time the training course is over?" Well, I'd never been told I was big, never been told I was heavy in my life. I was absolutely gutted, horrified. So me and one other girl in the same unfortunate situation, every time the lunch came around, the trainers were like, "Yeah, I'm watching you." Oh, it was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And this is one of those things that I really hope they don't do anymore. But there we are. So we learned all these safety and emergency procedures, and I would say 85 to 90% of that course was about learning what to do if something goes wrong. So when you're sitting there in your seat and the cabin crew are walking down the aisle and serving you tea, coffee and whatever, Pringles, bear in mind that most of their training has been in the case of an emergency, and really they're just doing all that other stuff because it's kind of something to do and another way for the airline to make money while you're sitting there. Now, if you're scared of flying, I apologise for that. And let's face it, it's still one of the safest ways to travel anyway. But I do want you to know that, because everybody thinks that you're there to dish out the food, there to sell duty-frees, and really, you're there. And in theory, you're poised and ready to go for when something goes wrong. So on this training course, we had lots of fun going into a smoke-filled mock-up fuselage of an aeroplane and finding dummies and pulling them out and learning quite a lot of first aid. But then it came to the cabin services section. And we'd sort of been doing it all the way along, because every lunchtime we'd kind of served each other. We'd be sitting in these pretend aeroplane seats, and there'd be a pretend oven there, and we'd be dishing this out, because this is back in the day where you got a tray with a little meal that was like lava. It was those days. So this comes out every time, and we're there, and the trainer's still going to me, "Anyone want my bread roll?" And apart from me, I can't have it. So the cabin services bit was very fast. We did it in about a week, carried on serving each other, but went a little more in depth, that kind of thing. And then we were going to be let loose. But just before we were, I did not know which way was up by this point. I was living, breathing and sleeping this training course. I was exhausted. My fellow cohorts on the course were exhausted. We could barely speak, think or anything by this point. something that happened one morning. I woke up and looked at the clock, and the hands on the clock were going straight across. Now, one thing you were not allowed to be was late. There was a coach that picked you up from the hotel and took you to the training centre. And if you were late, that coach went without you. So I woke my roomie up, because we were in twin-bedded rooms, woke her up straight away, and we set to getting our makeup on, panicking that we were late. 9:15. How? How the hell is it 9:15? Oh my goodness. Oh no. She's there tonguing her hair. I'm there doing all the body filler. And then I thought, oh God, I better look out the window, see if the coach is gone. Oh, I hope they've held it for us. Open the window, it's dark. Why is it dark? Because it's not 9:15. It's 2:45. 2:45, 2:45 a.m. That is because we were so disorientated. We had no idea. We went back to bed with our makeup on, ready to go, and we were the first on the coach that next morning. So finally I got my wings, which is a ceremony that they hold at the end of the training course, where you finally, because you've been allowed to wear the uniform, in fact they've done checks to make sure you're wearing it properly every morning. So I got my wings and I pinned them on with pride, and a certificate and a class photo. So the next stage is to do your subordinate flight. Subordinate? Because you're an extra pair of hands. So the idea is that you're sort of on there watching everything that's going on, but of course you're there, so you end up doing most of the work. And this is when the wind-ups start. This is when the senior stewardesses and stewards think that they're so funny. Real rib ticklers. So the first one I got was, here's a J cloth, nip outside and wipe the outside of the windows, would you? Oh, how I laughed. The next one was, the man in 34B has asked for an extra meal. Go and tell him he can have one, but it's going to cost him 20p. Okay, so the first one I obviously just laughed off. The second one I said to him, it's 20p. He gave me 20p, took it back to the galley, and she said, oh, I was only joking, go and give it him back. I was like, this isn't funny. This is just silly. Anyway, you can imagine I was a real hit. So now that I'm older and wiser, would I have done those? No, I'd have probably lost my job within 3 flights. Yeah, the ability to suffer falls has not aged well. It wasn't all bad. I really enjoyed talking to the passengers, but when you're on an hour-and-a-half flight or a 2-hour flight, you've got to get them on the plane. You've got to do the safety demonstration, then you've got to do the drink service, then you've got to tidy up from the drink service, bring all the rubbish in, then you've got to do the meal service and then bring all the rubbish in from that, and then you've got to do the duty frees on top of that, then another rubbish run, and then get them off the plane. So when you've got all that to do, you haven't really got time to have a conversation with the passengers. Plus, you're supposed to nip in the loo every 5 minutes to make sure that nobody's left anything vile in the sink or anything. Great. Yeah, I can do that and make sure there's fresh toilet roll. Yeah, lovely. So yes, it was fraught and it was fast-paced, and you just have to get on with it. In fact, the other day I was clearing something out and I found a sick bag with a drawing on from a little girl who said, to my favourite air stewardess. I was like, oh my God, that is so sweet. And I'm clearly a hoarder. We were the charter airlines and we carried mostly holiday makers and an awful lot of stag and hen parties. And one particularly fond memory is when I was standing at the bottom of the stairs wishing everybody a pleasant flight and all of this. And one day a very excited stag party came along, and one of them decided to pick me up by my ankles and swing me round his head. Now, I would like to say to those trainers that I clearly wasn't that heavy, because he managed it very easily. There were also sometimes trickier passengers. I remember one lady asking me if I would mind retrieving something that she dropped down the toilet by accident. I said yes, I would mind, and that I was about to serve the meals, so probably not a good idea. Another one, picture if you will, me, who I am known to be a little bit clumsy. walking down the aisle with a pot of coffee or tea in my hand and a tray underneath that people pop their little plastic cup on so that I could fill it up. And one of the ladies in the aisle, I leant over her and unfortunately I spilt some of my coffee on her cream silk blouse. Remember where we are, late 80s. And she obviously wasn't very happy about this. I mean, I don't blame her really because it was hot. But she was, oh, and all this. And I said, I'm so sorry, we hit an air pocket. That was my get out clause for everything. And she's like, I didn't feel anything. I'm like, well, you're sitting down. It's not quite the same. Our airline was mostly short haul with the odd bit of long haul, and everybody wanted the long haul flights, of course, because then you got to stay away and it was all a big adventure. But unless you were basically the brother of or in a relationship with somebody, let's put it nicely, with somebody in crewing, you didn't get those flights. You mostly got the short haul stuff. So I mostly got the short haul stuff. And a couple of times a week, you'd be put on standby, which means that you had to have everything ready to go. And they could call you, give you very short notice, and you'd have to rush to the airport and do a flight, filling in for somebody usually because they'd gone off sick or something like that. I quite like the standby thing. I like getting paid to sleep. It's great. I mean, that's what I do now. I teach people print on demand and other passive income, the other channel, by the way, we'll link to it, because I like earning money in my sleep. Maybe that's where it all came from. I don't like getting woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning and have to put the lipstick on, the outfit on, and haul my backside to the airport. Didn't like that at all. But hey, it was part of the job. And then what about the other end of the day when you get home? And after a night flight particularly, I would be so tired. Now they do say, I don't know whether it's true or not, but they do say an hour worked in the sky is like 2 hours working on the ground because of the cabin pressure and everything. I was exhausted and I'd get home, put the key in my front door, and I would leave a trail of clothes and then just flop face down on the bed. And that was it, out cold. The day-to-day though was getting them in their seats so that we managed to get our slot on time, doing the safety and emergency stuff, feeding them, and then getting them off again. Oh, and then in a lot of places doing the seat pockets, so we had to dig out all the rubbish from the seat pockets and then doing it all again on the way back. Great. And I know what you might be wondering, or if you're not, probably the next person watching this video will. No, I did not join the Mile High Club. Not while I was an air stewardess, no. Far too professional. And did you know that there's also something called the Mile Under Club these days? Yeah, the Channel Tunnel. Anyway, no. So eventually I did start getting the long haul flights. In fact, I went to Orlando 13 times. And does this mean I've been to Disney? No, it does not. Why does it not? Because every crew, and let's face it, every time you flew it was a different crew. Every crew I flew with, they all said, oh, we've already done that. I've already done Disney, don't want to do it again. I was like, I'm not going to go on my own. So I never got to go. And even now, with my partner, we've been out to Florida a few times. He's got family that live out there. Have we done Disney? No. We ended up at the Disney Mall once, and it's not the same. It's just not the same. However, something good did come from those Orlando trips. On the very last one, I was there at the bar sipping my Long Island iced tea, talking to one of the captains, who, by the way, I found every member of Flight Deck I met totally respectful and really, really lovely. This guy said to me, this isn't really for you, is it? And I had to admit he was right. These days, I'd like to think I would have cottoned on a whole lot sooner and I wouldn't have pursued it. The best thing, the very best thing, was when we had an empty leg. And what that means is if they've just started doing a route to somewhere, or it's the beginning of a season, like the beginning of the ski season, for example, or the end, there's no passengers to pick up because nobody's been there yet, but there are passengers going out. So you work the flight going out, but on the way back, the flight would be completely empty. So what we used to do, we used to get the brown meal trays. Now, you know, these, you can imagine they're so big, and they're like the school dinner ladies used to have, those sort of things. So you would sit in the middle aisle between the seats on this tray, you would lift up your feet, You would use the seats left and right to get you some momentum, and you would whiz down that centre aisle and go bashing into the back galley. Oh, it was great. How I never broke my ankle, I have no idea. So now when I fly, I sit there and I watch the cabin crew with a wry smile. They're working blinking hard and they deserve a lot of respect. Would I swap places with them? No, not on your Nelly. But I am glad I did it. I'm glad I had to go because I'd have always wondered otherwise. And I guess that's the biggest lesson I took from the whole thing, is that life is short, and if you really want to have a go at something, for whatever reason, even if it's just because your big sister's done it, if it's going to niggle away at you, get it done, have a go. And of course, in those days, I thought I was going to live forever, and I thought I'd got plenty of time to nail down my career. Yeah, I still think that, really. I did make some really great friends too, and it's great dinner party fodder when I'm telling people that I used to be cabin crew, because anybody who knows me now knows that really I shouldn't be given hot things at 35,000 feet where there's turbulence and all sorts of things that could happen. Plus now, of course, I do know that I can be called upon to do a full face of makeup even when I'm 99% asleep. Not bad. So if you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to me, and do watch the rest of my videos. If you would like to learn how to do print on demand and find out about other passive income streams, please do follow my other channel, Jo Wildsmith Pod, P-O-D, and Passive Income.